everyone, and welcome back to the Alexa Show. I am Alexa Servo-Didio, your host. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Well, tonight I have such an incredible guest with us here on the Alexa Show. With us, I have Casie Fariello from OPLM, Other Parents Like Me. And I really wanted her to come on the show tonight to talk about mental health with the family, with the parents, and the children. Welcome to the Alexa Show. Thank you so much for tuning in with us and coming and joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me, Alexa. I was pleased that you came on two of our speaker talks actually, and joined us, and very excited when you said, "Hey, come talk to my audience too." So thank you very much for having me.
Definitely, and I think what you do is so important because so many times mental health in the family is one of those topics people don't want to discuss. It's a hard discussion to have. It's sometimes harder to reach out for resources and to go into different groups and talks to find other people who are dealing with the same issues with your own families or with your own children. How did you get started with OPLM?
I have had a journey with each of my kids. I have three of them, 19, 21, and 22. My oldest has anxiety. My middle son has ADHD, which led to substance use in his young teens as a response, that moment where he finally felt like, oh, I feel like I can calm down. So that's what the substance use did for him. And my youngest is part of the LGBTQ community, and he was cutting. So I've had a lot of different paths that have happened with my kids. And I knew that because I told you my middle child has substance use, when I was looking for resources, when I was looking for ways to help myself, when I was looking for something beyond therapy, beyond family therapy, beyond like the residential treatment, because my son went to residential treatment, I knew that I wanted something not just Al-Anon. And I will tell you honestly that the 12 steps taught me a lot, taught me to self-care, taught me to look at my part and my journey, and started to really change me. However, it didn't always feel fit for me as a parent.
Yes.
And so I was like, there's got to be other things out there, and I couldn't find things that fit, or I found niches, or I found ones that were like just local, but nothing where I could just go to a big general source and find lots of support groups, people who are there with me, tools or stories or wisdom, and that's stuff to research and speakers to listen to who I could actually ask questions and you weren't going to charge me.
Yes.
So that was why I started Other Parents Like Me.
I think what you brought up was so important because Al-Anon, AA, NA, incredible groups. They do such great work and such great education and steps to follow. But a lot of times people don't understand it's not just one cookie cutter way of treatment. It's not one cookie cutter family. What might work for one won't work for the other. And it's hard, especially if you haven't had a therapy background or other support systems, to maybe take everything from Al-Anon, AA, NA, and know how to utilize those different tools. And especially if you're a child in crisis, a family in crisis, you go in, you say, I don't fit in here, I don't know what to go. So it's easier to walk away than to say, okay, let me try to work that, because you don't have those tools yet. So I think that's what's so important, to let people know that there are other groups out there. There are other ways, and not to get discouraged if maybe the big larger groups, the general groups, don't really fit exactly, or you don't feel like you fit exactly. That's okay, because even in mental health, just because you have one diagnosis, everyone with your diagnosis is not treated the same. Each individual has their own treatment plan, as I say so many times on my shows. Each person is unique, even if they present with similar issues or concerns or behaviors. Each one has to be so different because we are so different. Each one of us, we can look alike. Even twins have different personalities. Even children in the same home growing up will have different perceptions, different experiences of what that household was like. So I think it's really important. What are families like when they come to your group, when they come to your meetings?
So many people are in crisis. And that happened for us as well. Before we searched to find the first time that we sent our older son to an IOP, which is a individual outpatient program, we just lived in crisis. Like we thought that was normal. And and you get to the point where actually you're just like, hey, well, at least he went to school. And so then that becomes the new norm, and then the next new norm, and the next new norm. And I'll never forget when we went in to, because the IOP had a parent support group. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget that when we described everything that had been happening, each of them having their different paths, and he said, you've been in crisis for the last 4 or 5 years, and you don't even know what normal is anymore. Mm-hmm. And when you're living with your amygdala just always alert, triggered, you can't even think about the first step.
No.
To help yourself. And self-care for yourself? No. Well, that's like, you're crazy. I don't have time for self-care. I'm trying to keep my children alive.
Yes. And I say a lot of times when people don't understand anxiety, they don't understand trauma, or people with certain OCD behaviors or suicidal ideation, how do you feel? What does this feel like? I said, imagine if we were in this building and the ceiling was collapsing and everybody was running out and the building was going to blow up. And I'm asking you to sit here on my stage and say, so tell me, what's your favorite color? What do you like to bake? What's your favorite recipe? You would be looking at me going, I can't, the building is going down. We're all going to die. What's going on? When someone is dealing with a mental health crisis, this is exactly what they're going through every minute of the day, every second of the day. You're always heightened in that fight, flight, or freeze where you don't have time to say, okay, we should try and do this, because your whole body and mind is in crisis. And I think people don't understand after a while. You could be in it for years, and then your body is used to that roller coaster of up and down. So when you do have the kind of calm time to someone dealing with a mental health concern, to calm time in just a day of life, it's not about just having a cup of coffee and looking at the sunset. It's saying, oh, thank God the windows aren't blown out on the house this morning.
Exactly.
And that's kind of the stakes are so much higher.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what our support groups are. Our support groups are 55 minutes. You do a meditation to start. There's 2 what I call peer parents. The peer parents are facilitators, and they're fully involved in this themselves. So even though they're leading the group, they are also having things that are still happening with their kids. Mm-hmm. That are still coming up, because honestly, having a child with mental health issues, and whatever way that goes sideways, does it go an eating disorder? Does it go suicidal ideation? Does it go cutting? Does it go substance use? Does it go, it just like can go all different kinds of ways. And you just want to figure out a spot that's comfortable for you. So that's why we start with meditation. We start to lower so that you can even be present in the meeting. So that's what the meditation does. Even if you can't, like, I don't know about you, but the first time I tried to do meditation, I was like, my brain is going like crazy. And like, I can't even stop it. So how are you expect?
Well, it's like speaking a different language. Your brain is saying, no, we don't do this. When we do this, then a crisis happens. So we have to be on guard and make sure we're ready to do something.
Yes. So it settles you into the space. And then we do a wisdom or a tool or some topic that's spoken to us about acceptance or self-care or boundaries. Maybe I love Young Pueblo. I talk about him all the time. I think he's an amazing poet. He does poetry about trauma. It's just like, he can say 2 sentences and it speaks to me. So just bringing that into the meeting, and then the parents talk about it. They start looking in on themselves, and they're allowed to finally, in that time, that 55 minutes, we're there because of our kids, but we're not there because of our kids. We're finally looking at us.
And that's the individual.
And then you start to individuate, and you start to calm down, and you start to be like, okay, that's him, and this is me. And that's huge for a parent to learn.
Absolutely. Having my daughter 3 years old, same thing. I think sometimes you don't realize, she comes first, but I have to get dressed and, take pictures and do different things and go out. And I'm like, oh, no, that's okay, as long as she looks great. And I think especially when there's crisis, that's the last thing you're thinking about yourself.
Right.
Did you eat today? Did you get your 8 hours of sleep? Are you at the gym? Those are the last times. You don't think of those things. So I think your group is so important that sometimes you can't, it takes a while, like even meditation, to come down and be like, I deserve something too. Yes, I'm a parent and I'm here as a parent, but I'm an individual first, and that needs to be taken care of. As I say, in the airplane, you have to put your oxygen mask on before you put your child's on, so you can start helping yourself, so you're able to deal with what's going on in the family.
Yeah, it's super important. And what I also have learned is no matter what the crisis is, no matter what the path is, no matter if you haven't even gotten to that crisis level, but you know your child has ADHD and has had it for 10 years, you kind of have this low level thing that's going on, that it's huge for you to just be in a group where other people are parents who are like, they're just trying to figure it out. And then we also have resources, so you can research and find lots of podcasts, and your show is on there and stuff like that for people to just go, oh, that speaks to me, or this podcast speaks to me, or that article I read, so that it just starts to shift, and you start to go, oh, okay, well, one size doesn't fit all. It also does not just your kid, it doesn't also one size does not fit all parents.
Yes.
And that's what we really try to acknowledge. And the speaker talks are from all different types of walks of life, so that might be the one thing that a parent who's struggling goes, oh, aha, ooh, that makes sense to me. And then just that little window is now open of, we can and I am allowed to do things differently.
Yes. And I don't know about you, if you find out now with Zoom, also is so more empowering though for some people, because sometimes you don't have to put your camera on. Sometimes you can be back. And I think sometimes, a lot of times, in-person groups are great. They're great to share. But a lot of times some people are not at that point, are definitely not at that point for themselves to even say something's going on, or even to talk about their child and their family. So I think it's so important to have someone to be able to even just listen, even if you don't have to say anything. I always tell people, you don't have to share, you don't have to say your name, just show up. If you grab one little piece of something where you go, that makes sense, that's incredible. That's where you can really move forward. And we don't know what it's going to be. It's always that one thing that just speaks to you and you're like, wow, okay, I hear that. I feel validated. I feel like someone understands what's going on, and other people know I'm not the only one stuck going through this, which is so important, because when you're in that crisis, you don't think anybody else is going through this, and you're like, what is wrong? What is going on? So it's so powerful to be there with all these other people going through something similar, or something, knowing and being able to validate your feelings. How many parents do you say maybe at a time, at a talk or at a meeting, would there be?
We can have up to 40.
Wow.
And just like you just shared, maybe 5 of them will have their camera on. Maybe 10 of them will actually have their real name. The rest will call themselves something else, or just say, I'm just listening. But they keep showing up. So it's okay to not feel brave. Like, it's really very, very true that we're not brave. We feel like we are stuck in our 4 walls of our home or our apartment. And if we share outside of it, then people are going to think we're bad parents.
Yeah. And it makes it real. And I think, and it's so hard to be able to step out and say, okay, something's going on in the family, something is going on. And we don't have the answers. And I think we always think we could fix this, we should have the answers. There isn't always that solution. We're always a work in progress. Everybody has something going on in their life, has some sort of issue or something that they're worried about. And I think by having people just show up is so powerful. It also opens up that door where they start to say, okay, there's a way, there's hope, there's light.
Right.
I feel a little bit lighter. As I always say, with therapy, when I was going into the office, I say, when you're coming to my office, it's almost like you have this huge overstuffed suitcase that you're dragging in and you can't hardly carry. Every time you leave, you're leaving just like maybe a little sock, a hair tie, a toothbrush. It's a little bit light. You're not dumping the whole thing out at once, but you're taking a little bit by little bit, you'll feel a little bit lighter. And I think it's also important for people to realize, going to groups, it takes a while, but as long as you get these little bits of pieces of glimpse of hope, it's very, very empowering.
Yeah, there was a really great thing that I learned at one of my son's programs, and they talked about, and I know you have talked about this, about the stuff that we bring from our own childhood and then their parents. So along with that sock and those ideas of your own personal stuff, you also have a backpack. And you don't realize you have a backpack, but you have a backpack. And that backpack has rocks from your parents, and rocks from your grandparents, and rocks from your great grandparents, and so on and so on. And so along with that, along with starting to heal the family, heal yourself by acknowledging and participating in this exchange with your kid and learning new stuff, you know what you start to do? You start to take rocks out of the backpack that you didn't even know you had. And that's huge. It's a weight that you didn't even know you were carrying.
Absolutely.
And hearing other parents, because we have like a trauma group, and we talk about our trauma, not our kids' trauma. We talk about our trauma. And it's amazing how just, oh, I hadn't thought about, my parents yelling at me. Now I hear because we don't want to think about it, right? Oh, my parent, I'm yelling. I sound just like my dad, or I sound just like my mom. But you start to actually take those pieces out, and you start to parent as you.
Yes, yes. And I think finding a name to it is so powerful, that there's a name for it. There's other people who are doing it. It's not this kind of big thing that's lurking and hanging over you. It's like, oh, that's that rock from there. Oh, okay. Now I see it. Now I have a name for it. Yeah. Now it's not this monster under my bed. It's this rock. I can say, okay, you could go over here. I could put you somewhere else. I don't need to have to carry you anymore.
Yeah.
What would you say to a parent watching who wants to get in touch with you, who wants to start this, who wants to take that first step? What does that look like?
So it's oplm.com. So Other Parents Like Me, just the first initial of each. And you can join for 3 months. It's free for 3 months. And then you can choose to pay and go to we have 17 support groups in a week. Wow. We have 2 men's, a women's, a solo mom. And I say solo mom because I mean not just a divorced mom, a single mom, a widowed mom, but a mom who doesn't have a co-parent who is fully active.
Yes.
And whatever that means. And we have the trauma group, and we have people with kids in treatment, young adults, adoptive families, because that's got its own thing.
Yes.
We even have a coffee and gratitude, if you can believe it. The coffee and gratitude, yes, there is a gratitude that comes from starting to change. Oh, yes. And it's amazing. And so that's what I suggest is you go try us for 3 months and search the groups, go watch the speaker recordings, because you can see Alexa in her past recordings. Go check those out, go search and listen to a couple podcasts, and definitely walk into one of the groups. And that's when people start to really notice, and they find their people. Like, oh, I go to the women's meeting on every Thursday at noon, and that's my group. And you get attached because you want to hear like what's going on for them, what's going on for their kids, and it's that's what I suggest. And if you want to like talk to me, you can just put support@oplm.com, and they'll get it to me, so that I'm happy to. I talk to lots and lots and lots of families along the way. And I don't think that every path is straight or even, or that my path is the way your path should go. I just share what my path is and listen to your path and,
Yes.
go from there.
And what I found when I was doing the 2 speaker talks for you is a lot of the people that were present, the questions they asked and the details were so impressive. And I find it's not just, generalizations, which those groups can be very helpful, just to, psychoeducation and learning. But that people really are able to ask really detailed questions about certain behaviors, and it's very educational too, but also able to find out what's going on, what are these feelings, what are some steps I can take to help myself, to help my child, and then having the support of experts, professionals, but then also other parents and advocates really being able to say, okay, this is what happened here, this is what we do. And that's really important too, that you have that community resource and you have that place, one, for yourself to feel validated, but also to find those resources and support so you can say, okay, where do we go from here?
Yeah, I was when we were in crisis, I was overwhelmed. I didn't know what to look for. I didn't know what to do. And everybody told, one person, okay, go this way, go this. I felt like I was in 100 directions. And when I wanted to ask specific questions, I was always afraid that the person who I was talking to, the therapist I was talking to, or whatever, or someone like you were looking for money from me. Yes. Instead of that you just wanted to help me. And that's just kind of because you're in such chaos that it's just, I just need to have answers, and I don't want to say this is where you should be going. I just want to have I want to talk to lots of people.
Tools. You want tools that you could use in everyday life, because yes, sometimes crisis happens when you're in therapy session.
Sure.
But a lot of times crisis happens in betweens, and sometimes you can't always call your therapist at 2 a.m. when chaos has hit. So if you have a couple of tools you can use, or you have a support group, or you can listen to a show or to a podcast and say, these are the steps what I can go through.
Yeah.
It's powerful. And I think also, when you have a lot of health issues and there's chaos and crisis going on, there's also, some trust. I mean, who do you trust? Yeah. Because we have to, people have to be careful. And sometimes people maybe have been not so maybe burned by other mental health professionals or authority. You're not comfortable yet going out, especially speaking about your child, anyone's child, going forward and really saying that. So having these groups, you're really able to say, okay, I'm in a supported area, group here that people can help me and give me tools that can be used on the spot in the moment.
Yeah, well, the other part that I learned on my journey of being part of peer-to-peer support was I showed up differently in my own therapy. I showed up differently in couples therapy. I showed up differently in the family therapy because I'd heard other people say out loud some of the things that I've been thinking about and avoiding. And now I connected to those and I could bring that forward. Wow. And that was eye-opening for me about having other peers say the things that, well, I can't say that in front of my therapist. I don't want to say that in front of the family therapist. I don't want my kid to hear that.
Yes.
And then having that first spot where you knew there was no judgment and no one, and everybody else was shaking their head like, oh yeah, we've thought that too.
Yes. And you're like, wow, this is amazing.
This is amazing. And now I can go say it in front of my kid, in front of my, my therapist, in front of the family therapist, at my kid's program, whatever it is. And it gives you a freedom that I didn't know that how freeing it was, peer support, and what it did for you.
Yes. Where do you see other parents like me in 5 years?
24/7.
Wow.
I want to be global. I want to have a meeting every hour of every day, so no matter where you are, and to have multiple languages and just continue to niche it out so that someone can always find a place, but lots of general ones so anybody can come.
What needs to be done for that to happen? Throw out anything. I always say my viewers are amazing. You put it out there and happens.
Okay,
what needs to be happening?
We need investors. I'll be honest with you, because there's so many people who are on this path that we just end up giving it to them because it's expensive and not everybody has resources.
No.
And I want no one, not one person, to feel that they can't come and get support.
Yes, yes.
And I don't want that. I don't want cost or anything like that, not having Wi-Fi or whatever. We need to help you to be a barrier. And so it takes help from the people on the outside of the world to help to support those who can't afford it.
Well, you're a true inspiration. You're really doing God's work, and we can tell, have that passion. And it really comes through you that this is your work, this is your love. They're your family, everyone.
They are. I mean, my peer parents, people write, they take surveys at the end, and my peer parents, they're like, you don't even come into the meetings all the time. How do you know who they are? And many of my OPLM parents, my other parents like me, subscribers, members, I mean, they know they can reach out to me. They know they can reach out to our peer parents. We have mentors. Our peer parents are mentors. They do it for free. It's a volunteer. And that just means the world, that even if that one parent feels that they have someone who heard them, that's huge.
That's huge. Well, thank you so much for coming on tonight. It's been
Thank you.
so amazing. Everyone, again, thank you so much for tuning in. If you have any questions, please send an email to alexas29@aol.com. If you need any more information on other parents like me, let me know. Also, all her information will be up on the screen during the show and after the show. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good night, and God bless.
Thank you.